way to do that. I'm going to start off right away here in our psalm for the morning because we have a lot to cover with our psalm, even though it's shorter. But as I was thinking about this psalm, I was thinking about road trips and how important on a road trip is the playlist. I mean, that playlist could make or break that road trip, right? Friendships could be lost or won over a good playlist or a bad playlist. And this psalm is the playlist for the Old Testament people as they took what amounted to a pilgrimage to Jerusalem. For most Jews, 3 times a year, they would go to Jerusalem, and on the way, they would sing these psalms of ascent. These 15 psalms were the playlist on their journey to Jerusalem. And Psalm 121 is one of the songs in the playlist, and it goes like this. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and going, both now and forevermore. This psalm starts with a simple question. Where does your help come from? It's an admission, I think an admission that everybody needs to make, but it seems so obvious for those that are making this pilgrimage. I mean, here they are in this desert, arid environment, walking potentially for days to Jerusalem. They know they need help. They're going to offer sacrifices to God. They're going to worship. They're going to a festival in Jerusalem. I mean, the whole point of this is to understand that they need help from God in life and their relationship with God. And so they're moving in that direction to get the help. But for us, I wonder if we've lost some of this. I mean, we live in a pretty rich culture, and you may think, well, compared to the person next to me or compared to those that I know I'm not rich, but you are. I mean, comparatively to the entire world, but even to those that would have been originally singing this in the context. I mean, I don't want to speak for all of us, but I don't think any of us in this room had to go a day this week without eating. I mean, maybe 1 or 2. I know we reach different segments of our community, but by and large, we don't have to worry and stress where our next meal will come from. Most of us have stable jobs or a support system that we know we can use if we need to. We have securities here in the United States that we can support on if we need a system to help us. We have cars to drive us, food in our stomachs. And so the vast majority of us are pretty well off. So we might think, well, we don't need much. Like there's not much help I need, but I know we start peeling back a layer and we start to bleed. We do have needs. We have mental health struggles. We have relationship dysfunctions. We have family drama. We are lonely. We yearn for a family of our own. Our jobs give us chronic stress and anxiety. Man, we wish time would just slow down. So here's my first, observation of this psalm or thing I think that we need to draw from the psalm. We must first admit that we need help before we can look for help. We need to admit we need help before we're ever going to look for help. Now, I've never been trained as a lifeguard, so it surprised me when I learned that part of lifeguard training is how to help yourself when you go to help others, because a lot of times when someone's drowning, they're going to try to drown you too. And sometimes it's just this sense of panic and desperation and trying to draw breaths. And so when you go to save them as a lifeguard, if you do it incorrectly, they're going to bring you down with them. And so lifeguards are trained to do it a certain way, or if they're going to save someone that's drowning and they're being taken down with this person, they learn to kick away from this person and save themselves. Because in such a panic and such a desperation, they're trying to do anything to take a breath. And I think in this case, they know they need help, but they have no idea how to ask for it. They have no idea what they can do. And I think this could easily bleed out to all areas of our life, where either we don't know we need help, and so in our desperation, we just continue on in the ways we are, or we know help, but we don't know how to look for help. And so we're scrambling, not knowing what to do, and potentially taking others down with us. So the psalmist asks, where does my help come from? Okay, we know we need help. We know we need someone that can help us. Where do we go from that? And this reference says, we look to the mountains. We're looking up, and I think this is a positive reference. I mean, they're getting close to their destination, and you know how it is in that road trip. The signs start pointing to where you're going. You're counting down the miles. You're starting to see familiar sights. You're getting anticipation for finally arriving where you are so desperately wanting to go. And that's the cue of these mountains. I mean, the Jerusalem is set up on a hill. These are the mountains surrounding Jerusalem, and they're so excited about this. Others reference these mountains as a negative thing. That mountains often are a symbol of a dangerous place, right? These pilgrims for many days, often at night or spending nights beside the road in these mountains, could be a place for thieves and robbers to hide out in. And so regardless if this is a reference to a good thing or a bad thing, these mountains, where does the help come from? Well, it comes from the maker of these mountains, not the mountains themselves. It comes from God, the maker of creation. And so as they look to the mountains, I think to the sense of this strong place, this close to destination, as great as they are, it's the maker of those hills. The maker of heaven and earth. And it's interesting that they are understanding their protection from God is being received even before they get into Jerusalem. Like they're far away from Jerusalem, but they're seeing this off in the distance, and they already understand their protection, their help is coming from God. And that's where their focus is, on God. And what happens when they get there? What is the help? And that's where I think the shift is a little bit in verse 3, from the helper to what is the help. And verse 3 says, he will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber. These people are on a wilderness trail, often rocky. And so for them to understand their protection is that God watches over every foot that's taking a step. And no matter the trail, no matter the circumstances, no matter the terrain, God is protecting every step they take. And so they will not slip, no matter how hard the walk is. This whole section, in fact, is a promise of God's protection. From the rising of the sun to the setting of the moon, God protects his people to the point that they could be sure of every step they take. Now, if you receive our church emails, especially our prayer chain, you are aware that there's 3 that went out about deaths of those that happened to our church members this week. We had 3 funerals in the span of 3 days this week. It was not an easy week for our church body. At one of those funerals, I read from 1 Corinthians 15. I want to read that here, starting verse 53. It says, for the perishable must clothe itself with the imperishable, the mortal with immortality. When the perishable has been clothed with the imperishable and the mortal with immortality, then the saying that is written will come true. Death has been swallowed up in victory. Where, O death, is your victory? Where, O death, is your sting? The sting of death is sin, and the power of sin is the law. But thanks be to God. He gives us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. Therefore, my brothers and sisters, stand firm. Let nothing move you. Always give yourselves fully to the work of the Lord, because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain. It's interesting here in this passage, and why I want to read it this morning, is that he says, based on all of this, the fact that there is a moment when our perishable will be traded for the imperishable. Our bodies that are perishable, and we witnessed it 3 times this week, our bodies will die and go to the grave, our physical bodies. But they will be traded with the imperishable. Something that death cannot steal from us. An eternal part of our lives that God has given us through Christ. And then he says, okay, what do we do with that? Verse 58, therefore, my brothers and sisters, stand firm. Going back to what we just read in Psalm 121, that we can stand firm, that our feet don't have to slip. And I'll tell you this, I did 2 of the funerals this week, and both of the families did not slip. I mean, the circumstances that they were in were these rocky paths. They're going down a path that they did not want to walk through. But they're so confident in God. They didn't slip. The terrain and the circumstances were difficult, but their testimonies of faith were so strong to others that were in the room. And so why can Paul tell believers here in this passage to stand firm? Because of what Psalm 121 has already told us, that we have a God who never sleeps. We have a God that watches over us. And that Jesus Christ has taken away our greatest fear, the fear of death. It's been defeated. See, death can cause us to question God's goodness. It can cause us to have fear and anxiety. It can be used against us as a weapon, as an active threat. But God has promised us that even death has no holding. Because there's something death cannot take. It's imperishable. It's immortal that Paul's talked about. It's been given us victory over death. At the beginning of this series, I asked for you to submit some different stories or reasons why certain Psalms were your favorite. And one of our church members chose Psalm 121 as his. And Paul Fitzgerald submitted the story, and I asked him for permission to share his story. He allowed me to. And so he quoted the first 2 verses of this passage, and then he shared the story. When my pregnant wife Leslie and I were told that with her health, she and the baby would have less than a 15% chance of surviving if she carried the baby to full term. And so after talking with family and a long discussion, and her already having 2 kids, we made the extremely tough choice to get an abortion. Once there, the doctor said Leslie would have less than a 10% chance to survive the procedure due to her health. So I used this psalm a lot to ask where my help would come from. If we have the child, I could lose the child and my wife. If I abort the child, I lose the child and my wife. There's no win. We prayed and we took our chances. And today we have a daughter that was born on Easter 2015 named Lily. Both mom and baby survived. This command to stand firm only makes sense when we understand the one behind the command is holding his people. He's telling them to continue to keep their eyes on the one that gives help, the maker of heaven and earth. There can be so many hard things that this life throws at us. There's so many different trails that we walk on, so many different types of paths, and the promise is to continue to walk because God has our feet. God continues to watch over us. The second point from this psalm is that we must stand firm because our keeper never sleeps. Stand firm because our keeper never sleeps. I want to explain why I use the word keeper here. 6 times in this psalm, the word shamar, this Hebrew word shamar, is used. It's translated in different ways in different translations. In the NIV, the one that I've read from, it's translated as watcher. 6 times in just 8 verses. When a word pops up that many times in such few verses, it should catch your attention. Why is this word repeated over and over again? Shamar in Hebrew is a pretty general word. It's first used in Genesis chapter 2 when Adam is given the command to watch over the Garden of Eden, as translated, take care of the garden, to take care. And so here in this passage, as we read, it said watch over and over and over again. But watch can be kind of a passive thing sometimes. To watch something, okay, I don't really have to do anything to watch it. And I thought about this scenario. I don't know when I would ever be asked to do this scenario, but I thought about if someone asked me to watch a bunch of cats. I'm not really into cats, so I don't know why somebody would ask me that. I don't know why a bunch of cats would be in a room. But if they asked me to watch the cats, I would go in there and I would watch them as they jumped out the window and whatever, as they snuck out the door. And I go, okay, that's too bad. The cats got out. And the person would come back and they would say, Jeff, I asked you to watch the cats. Where are they? I said, well, I watched them jump out the window. I watched them go out the door. I did what you asked me to do, right? And my daughter would be devastated because she loves cats. And if she was asked to watch cats, she would speak sweet things to them and she would draw them back to her and she would have 6 cats in her hand and that's how she would watch them. And that's the picture of Psalm 121. An active watching, a participation in helping. And so many translations use the word keeper. God is our keeper. He is active in this watching. He's not going to let you slip. He's taking a role in guarding. And so God is actively participating in guarding you so that we can stand firm. And so when the scenarios of life come our way, when decisions are made that we wouldn't wish on our enemy, God guards you so that you can stand firm. The psalmist uses some beautiful illustrations to emphasize this. He talks about how God does not sleep or slumber. This is especially comforting to the pilgrim travelers. It's a multi-day trip. They're most vulnerable at night. But God does not have to sleep. I think this should give us comfort too. Because eventually the friend that we've gone to get encouragement, well, their phone goes into do not disturb mode. And maybe it's your doctor and your doctor has to go home. God never puts his phone on silent. He doesn't have to go home. Verse 5, another illustration that the psalmist uses is that the Lord is a shade at your right hand. The right hand is where a soldier would hold a sword, a possible allusion not to have to use it anymore. That God is keeping you from that. God is fighting for you. God is so close that he's casting shade on you. This is a picture of God not staying in heaven with a pair of binoculars, but no, he's so close, he is at your right hand. His presence changes your environment. That's a wonderful image. Another one that is used is that the Lord will keep you from all harm. He watches over you both now and forevermore. I want these verses to be a medicine for those that are exhausted, for those that are tired, for those that need some sleep. That God does not need sleep. You may have woken up this morning, wonder if you have enough strength for the day. And God did not wake up this morning because he did not sleep. And he knows he has enough strength for you. And so God will preserve you. And I want you to understand this in the totality of biblical revelation. Meaning, when we read these verses, we need to understand what God is talking about when he says he will preserve you from all harm. He will keep you from all harm. And there's 2 ways of thinking of this. I want to think about it in the ways of the pilgrims singing it on the way to Jerusalem. One way to understand this is God will keep you from all harm. So God will put you in this bubble and nothing bad will ever happen to you in the way that he could work out miracles and keep you. He's going to keep you from anything ever bad happening. He's going to prevent any bandit from getting to you. He's going to prevent any physical harm from getting to you. The other way of understanding this is that God will equip you and God will prepare you and God will give you everything you need so that when those bandits do come, you will be preserved. You know how to handle yourself and handle them in the situation. Both of those are God preserving his people, but done in different ways. One commentary said this: in light of other scriptures, to be kept from all evil does not imply a cushioned life, but a well-armed one. Psalm 23 expects the dark valley and can face it. Maybe another way to understand these two options, if you will. If you had a child and you had the ability to cushion that child from all harm, would you want that for your child? Like every bit of harm. So they never have to use a Band-Aid. They never have someone speak anything even close to a harmful word to them. They never scuff their knee. They never have butterflies in their stomach from taking a risk. It might take you some time to think about that, but I'm going to guess the answer to that question is no. You wouldn't want them to escape every tiny bit of risk or harm. Why? Because you know their experiences, ones that even hurt them and harm them, have the ability, and only those experiences have the ability to build resilience, empathy for others. These are qualities about them that you know they need to have. And so that difficulty can actually be necessary for life. Think about it with physical therapy. Anybody that's had a knee replaced or a shoulder or a hip out of place, you know you don't enjoy rehab, but the muscles must be put under tension. They must have resistance to be built again. Training wheels. Parents eventually remove them, not because you stopped loving your child, but because you're preparing them. You're maturing them. And so there's actually some risk and danger in that, but it is a good thing. And so can't you see this with God's protection too? And I'm not saying this just as a Christian cliche or because it's an easy answer. It is actually a very difficult answer and one that's hard to accept. That God allows us, he doesn't always cause it, but he allows us to go through the valley towards scary mountains, equipping us for a life protected by him. And that protection is not a promise from harm in all things, but to be prepared for all things. And so here's my last observation for the morning. We must trust God's protection more than our own comfort. To trust God's protection more than our own comfort. And so we trust that God is protecting us even at the funerals, even at the doctor's office, even at the hard dinner conversations, even at the times all alone when we're crying out to God or yelling at God. We trust that as part of God's protection, even when I don't feel comfortable with it. I already mentioned how this is a psalm of ascent and how Jews would sing it on the way up to Jerusalem, which means Jesus was very familiar with this psalm. He sang it many times. Many times he went on the journey to Jerusalem. The final time he ascended towards Jerusalem, he was doing much more than just singing a worship song. He was going to be a sacrifice. And so he climbed that hill one final time so that you and I could know that God is a keeper that would never leave us. And in that moment, Jesus was not prioritizing his own comfort or desire over God's direction and protection. Let me clarify. I don't think comfort in itself is a bad thing. I think living a life where you feel comfortable and things, you look around and you go, wow, there's no bad thing going on right now. Sometimes we're like, okay, God, does that mean something's right around the corner? Like we get this sense that something is coming. And I don't think to live a comfortable life is a bad thing in and of itself. However, when comfort of our own making becomes a priority of God over God's direction, or comfort of our own making while denying God's direction, or comfort of our own making while not allowing God to be with us, I think that can become a sin. And so we need to ask ourselves, am I prioritizing my own comfort, my own sense of wellness over what God is doing in my life? I remember about 3 years ago or so, we brought in 2 counselors to do a parent seminar. It was a little after COVID, and we were sensing, man, these kids are having a lot of anxiety in their lives. And so we asked these counselors to come in to speak to parents. As parents, what can we do to help our kids face the anxiety that it seems like they're facing, but also a lot of their classmates in school? And so it's a parent seminar talking about anxiety in kids. And so the first question, because it was a seminar about anxiety in kids, was what can we do as parents when our kids are facing a lot of anxiety? And I remember, anxiety in kids doesn't start with your kids. It starts with you. And so I took a big gulp. Okay. I think all of us in the room did. And we go, okay, what do we do? And I said, look, let's understand this from a simple illustration. We can imagine your child out in the playground. And your child is going on the monkey bars. And you say, be careful. And then they go out into the slide. And you say, oh, watch out. It seems a little high. And then they go down at the slide. And at the end, they hear, man, you're close to falling on the ground. Let's not do that again. And then they go and they climb the stairs to this 3-story place structure. And again, they hear, be careful. It's a life where we've trained them to be safe and comfortable. And they come out fearful and anxious about everything. Because here's a playground which is designed for fun and safety. And we've made it into the exact opposite. And so then they go into life, which is not guaranteed fun and safe. And so, of course, they have anxiety. And so you see how these things can be switched with great intentions, where comfort leads to great anxiety and disappointment and hurt and questioning reality. And so God might be calling us into a place where we stretch ourselves. A place that we can't guarantee is comfortable, or a place where we can't guarantee is safe. Because we live in an isolating world that is often unpredictable. But we have a God that has promised to watch our every step, that He is our keeper. And so where does our help come from? Our help comes from the Maker of heaven and earth. Now there's an interesting shift in this psalm between verse 2 and verse 3. And there's different theories as to why there's a shift, but it's interesting because in verse 1 and 2, it's this first person. I lift up my eyes. Where does my help come from? But in verse 3, it shifts a little bit. It talks about how God watches over you, the harm you have to keep you. It becomes a psalm about somebody else. Why is this perspective shifting? And I'd like to understand this psalm and this shift being between kind of a sense of you and I, that I start off the first 2 verses as the psalm leader. But then the rest that are on this pilgrimage speak up. And it's this back and forth encouraging one another. I mean, that's what our gathering is about. Look at Hebrews chapter 10 from the New Testament. It says, do not give up meeting together as some in the habit of doing. Why? Encourage one another. Because you need encouragement. That's why you can't give it up. You don't just come because it's a habit. You don't just come because it's the right thing to do. You do it because you get encouraged. Because sometimes you're not feeling it. And when everybody around you is singing the psalm about where your help is, it encourages you. I mean, let's break down that word for just a second. Encourage. Into. Courage. Heart. To put heart into someone else. Because someone woke up this morning and they're not feeling it. Somebody woke up this morning and they had a really hard night last night. Someone woke up this morning and it was really difficult to get your kids out of that car looking half decent. And so it's difficult coming in here and they need a little heart put in them. And so you singing loudly next to them. You saying amen next to them puts a little heart into them because they sense, no, this is true. God is watching my step even when I don't feel it. And so something we can think about today. Who is it in this room or another room that needs to see a fellow traveler and they need you to put a little heart into them? Because they're headed towards the hills. They're looking for God's protection, but maybe they're a little discouraged by a critic or a rocky road, and so you're going to put a little heart into them. I don't think I've ever met anyone that is suffering from too much encouragement. So let's do a little bit more of that as we stand and we praise God, knowing that God is our keeper.